Imagine if in the early days of the internet, you could have built the one technology that every website in the world had to run on. We're at such a point where it's actually a much harder problem to scale and run a virtual world than it is to build a web server.
Hi, I'm Tobin Ireland, the co-founder and chief business officer at MetaGravity.
I'm Rashid Mansoor. I'm the co-founder and CEO of MetaGravity.
Have you seen the movie The Matrix or maybe Ready Player One? The people in these movies live and work and socialize inside computer simulations. And the technology world is now very interested in such a future like this and predicts that trillions of dollars of value and billions of players will be living in these worlds in the next 10 years. But there's just one problem. The technology that is required to power these worlds today just doesn't exist. You can't have an interactive world with more than 100 or so simultaneous users today. And in order to bring billions of people across the globe into a virtual world that exists in a computer simulation, we need technology that's radically different to anything that exists today. And that's what we're building at MetaGravity.
I became aware of the extent to which tech giants themselves saw the next decade as being dominated by the need for building large-scale immersive virtual worlds, the Metaverse, if you will. The infeasibility of the Metaverse meant to me that there's an opportunity unlike any other. Imagine if in the early days of the internet, you could have built the one technology that every website in the world had to run on. We're at such a point where it's actually a much harder problem to scale and run a virtual world than it is to build a web server. And we are building the technology that makes that sort of virtual world possible. And such a company over the next decade ought to become an extremely valuable company and player in the space.
This is actually the second business that Rashid and I founded together. We first hooked up in 2014 when I just left my corporate career at Vodafone, and Rash was in the first cohort of Entrepreneurs First. And we've been really excited to get back together to form MetaGravity in the last year.
There is a lack of understanding about that problem, and there is sort of a expectation that the technology is just going to scale in the same way we scaled up the web. It's not so easy with the virtual world because on the web, you have a number of requests coming through and they are all independently processed by the backend. And each new request can largely be independently processed. And there is a lot of tolerance for things like latencies. But when you talk about a virtual world, you're talking about a shared reality that all observers have to participate in. You're talking about causal relationships in the physics of the world. If I move an object, and there's 1 billion people in my world, it has to move simultaneously for all billion. They may not all be trying to interact with it at the same time, but it is necessary that it move in such a causally linked way that if anyone were to try and interact with it, it would instantaneously be correct for all observers. This is a deep misconception. It's a difficult problem to solve, and it requires dedicated focus and insights, and it requires a leap forward in technology to solve.
Well, MetaGravity is an interesting mix of deep technology, blockchain, gaming. And we really, at the start, wanted to work with the best investors who understood the deep tech challenges that we faced and knew that this was a long-term project that would bear fruit in the end and help us focus on our multi-year roadmap. We're also keen to be a global business, so we were really excited about the link between the Asian and the North American, European markets, and that was key for us. But we just really love Sino's straightforward approach. When they said they would do something, they did it. And they really made us feel like they'd have our backs on the journey ahead.
Some advice I would give to new entrepreneurs in this space is to be mindful of the amount of hype in the industry, in the field, and the tendency for too many to trivialize the real challenges and complexities of this road towards the metaverse. It is quite easy to encounter third parties who have claims that are naive, and there are many big players who've spent hundreds of millions of dollars trying to solve problems in this space and not got anywhere. It requires real insight and it requires real understanding of the problems at the heart of what building and scaling the metaverse is going to be like. So to new entrepreneurs looking to be in this space, it is important to develop a good filter and a good sense for what is real to separate fact from fiction.
Find yourself an exceptional technical co-founder, because all that really matters in the end of the day is tech and product. Great product will sell itself.